there was this tsunami of things which happened then. And I was 7, I didn't understand.
Goeiedag, dames en heren. Welcome to another episode of Expulsion at 50, a podcast series commemorating the 50-year anniversary of the expulsion of Asians from Uganda. My name is Dola Vasani. In June 2020, during the COVID-19 lockdown, I spoke to Rohit Vyas, who lives in Amsterdam. Rohit was only a child when he left Uganda with his mother and siblings. Here he shares his journey, reflections, and insights.
I was born in Lugasi, in a new colony. It was called New Colony, the area. It was only meant for Mahindis, for Indians. So mostly were Gujarati. We had a Punjabi family living next to us, and some Marathi maybe, but mainly Gujarati. And I think my childhood, my youth was, for these 7 years, were quite secure, veilig, as they say, safe in the environment, only within the Indian community and the family community.
Rohit's father was an employee of the Madhwani group, started by Mujibai Madhwani, who migrated to Uganda from India back in 1908. In 1918, the company bought land and started the sugar factory.
My father had a good job. We got a very good house with a beautiful garden. And my mother used to do gardening. We used to help. My father did the fence. And life was good.
Reflecting back on his life in Uganda, Rohit highlights the various levels of separation, segregation, and privilege.
Community was, very close and took care of each other, helped, and the women had their own gatherings, with bhajans and social things and Mataji Tervana, segregation of genders. I remember the boys were boys and girls were girls, or men were men and women were women. That was very strict. It's the culture, but also I think the time. 12 o'clock, sometimes they came home. So the women were very traditional in their role, cooking dal, bhat, sak, roti, and then the whistle of the factory went shh, shh. And then my mom says, okay, I need to put the cooker on because he's coming in a while. On paper, we were all equal. But you could see that we had a privileged position in Uganda. We sure had. And I was too young to see that, but because I thought this is how it is, right? When you're under 7, you don't know better than what you experience. In Lugasi, the original African people lived in another area, and not in the area. It was, the thing I always saw. We never saw African people, in as a partner or someone, similar, to us doing jobs which we did. It was very Indian in all way. The language was Gujarati, and our religion, our caste. So it's like little India outside India. Well, we came from the Brahmin caste, so I didn't know what that was, but I saw that because when you go to weddings and when there are when you go to the temples, then then you have some privileges, and you mostly mingle with family a lot. So then you're only in this caste circle, and the traditions and things, the language, the food. It applies on everything, your whole way of life. The patang, the kite, goes in the direction the wind blows, and you don't have any regie, you don't have any control over it.
In August 1972, President Idi Amin made the announcement of the expulsion. What followed was months of confusion and indecision. The destiny of families was dependent on what passport you held.
My mother was British passport holder overseas. She could go to Britain. Britain was not waiting for us, but they couldn't deny us. That was the big problem for Britain. They couldn't say no because my mom showed the passport. Children were in her passport. So my father thought the wise thing to do, it's very unsecure, it's military rule now, and with Idi Amin, I have a good job and maybe they want to keep the factory going on because it's economic income for the country as well. Sugar was one of a very big export product. So my father was not expelled. He could stay. He got a special permit to stay. India was also not waiting for him. They said we had 1 billion people and we have our own problems. And this community of what's called 100,000 people, it's not. They might be Asian, but I think they had okay, so it's take care of it somehow, but not here.
People spent endless hours waiting outside embassies, travel agencies, and banks.
And they stayed in Kampala with family, So in the morning they could quickly go, and there was a huge line, and everyone went very early. So it was lines, lines, lines. You didn't know how many days you were waiting in the line. I just remember us going with a lot of saman, a lot of luggage, going, and my mom was packing, packing, packing. I remember with these trunks and these aluminium trunks, and she did household things and all the clothes and some of my favorite toys. Then we went to the airport. There was military everywhere. Everywhere you were stopped and you were asked for, okay, show me your passport. Is your visa? Are you going to what's your flight number? And blah, blah, blah. So army men, big African men, lot of them, and with guns. So it was very frightening because these things you only see in picture, in films, but this is reality. We didn't ask and nobody told us. We just walked with everyone and left and went in the plane and then stepped out and then thought it's cold here.
Upon arrival in Britain, Rohit, his 3 siblings, and mother chose not to go to a refugee camp. Instead, they stayed with relatives in northwest London.
I still remember the house. Dollishill Avenue in Neasden. So that was the new home, the new house, and a new country and a new life. Just like this. Everything is changed. Really. Country, continent, language, food, culture, everything. Skin color. Not ours, but the surrounding skin color is different. So you see, I am different. That was the biggest thing. I go out of the system I came from the the tradition I came from the country I came from, and I'm in a total other environment. I don't have any anchor points. I don't have any hooks, or I don't have any. Ik heb geen ankerpunten meer. Ik heb geen referentiekader. I don't have, referentiekader. I don't have that anymore. So I have to establish in a vacuum something new in a vacuum. There is no soil. It's like, you're creating a house not on the earth, but in the air.
He was enrolled at a local primary school where for the first time he had to wear a school blazer, tie, and wait in line for school dinners.
In the classroom, not understanding always what they were telling. It was English, but too fast for me. And if I was asked, I couldn't give fast, quick answer. So, and my uncle who studied there and he did a university at London. And he said, don't go outside there, or don't go there without me, or be home quickly and don't wander around in the park, don't go alone. And when it's dark, don't go. And especially being scared of people without hair, the skinheads as they called. I never knew what that was. But for the first time we knew there were skinheads, and skinheads were people who you might be afraid of because they might harm you, they might hurt you. So this was an extra factor, compliceerde factor. It was an extra bedreiging. Like you're in a new country and you're coping with what you have, and then there's this danger also coming on top of it. Adults who see, who can analyze, who can hear, and then read the newspaper and look television and see what it means when there's skinheads of the national fronts are doing protest marches, walking like Asians go home, and how must that come into the hearts and in the eyes of the Asians, the thousands of Asians who came from Uganda? You don't feel welcome. You feel like a third-class citizen. I put my energy in just being and living my daily life, going to school, coming home, playing in the garden, outside, playing at the park. I liked the English sweets, and Cadbury was something to die for.
It was a stressful time for everyone, wondering about their father and what the future may hold.
I saw my mother was she was crying often in the evening, and then my auntie came and said, "Oh, it will be okay, Vanita, don't worry. We will live here always in this sitting room, with this family in this crowded house." There was some tension as well because sibling, nephews, and nieces, because we occupied their country, their territory as well. They couldn't sit in the living room till late, even not in the weekends, because we had to sleep there. So, we also felt like, okay, let's obey and let's be, show the best part of yourself.
Once the 90 days deadline passed in November 1972, most Asians with Ugandan passports renounced their citizenship and became stateless. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees, or UNHCR, arranged flights out of the country.
We got some information. I think we got a letter and then a phone call from my father. So that was wonderful news for all of us. My mother was so happy. People were collected in Vienna as a collecting camp. And from there, there was a transfer for the different European countries. There were quotas, I believe.
Rohit's father made a decision based on his skills and employability.
I know Philips, and if you say Philips, you say Holland. So it was first Philip and then Holland. We came at Schiphol, the airport, and this was our second flight in life. First from Kampala to London, and then from London to Amsterdam. And my father, with a friend of him, with a big van, came to collect us. I remember we saw a father, it was like, I nearly forgot how he looked like.
So after almost a year in England, they find themselves in a refugee camp in the Netherlands.
Apeldoorn, there's a kind of remote forest area in Holland, where Dutch people go there in the summertime and hire a bungalow. And in the winter, it was not used. So they kept us all there together. And I remember that was a very precious moment. It was freezing, one heating in the whole bungalow, and all these sleeping rooms, they didn't have any heating because it was a summer bungalow, so no heating in the sleeping rooms. It was an adventure. We were in the woods. We went from bungalow to bungalow and wanted to see our rooms and other Gujarati people. And then you come to Holland and you have to start all over again with a language which you only speak maybe one word, like hello, dag. They put us together at school at a near city. I think we went by bus or we went by bike, because biking is very popular even in those days. Navratri celebrations, two highlights. Shivratri, we did the bhajans together. We didn't have any tabla or harmonium, all the instrument, but then we used a pan upside down and we just made some sound of manjiras with spoons. And, and singing together is very important in our culture. We sing together. We sing folk songs. We sing devotional songs, songs of relief, songs of inspiration, songs of positivity, bringing strength. Our own culture also. They were still wearing saris, and there was Indian food. always every day, even though we had to have, there was no way of getting masala here, because where do you get masala in the 70s? After one winter staying in this bungalow, we went to, they said, let's spread the people, because then they can integrate more, better. Otherwise, they'll live together. They'll be, they'll talk to only in their own language. They go to school, but they will not be a part of the society. The good thing was that they put families together, 4 or 5 families in Spijkenisse, 4 or 5 families in another city. My father found job somewhere doing manual work. Later, he found job at the DAF, the truck, doing the technical department. What was his thing? And my mother also worked. My mother had never worked, was always a housewife. But, we had to start all over again. So money was needed, but never complaining. My father never complained. My mother never complained. They just did what they had to do. I picked up Dutch very quickly. I was talking, and then I remember that I surpassed Gujarati, I surpassed English, and then my best language was Dutch. Fitting in, but also not fitting in, being of color.
Rohit started becoming more and more curious about his family history. This culminated with a visit back to Uganda in 1998.
Often telling their stories of Uganda, before they married, what did they do, where did they live in India, my father, my mother in Uganda, how the family lived, and lots of stories, lots of stories. And my sister and I said, would it be wonderful to interview them. It was fun, and they loved it, it took hours. I remember taking books about Uganda, going on internet about Uganda, looking up like, okay, are there any articles of Idi Amin saying this, or articles about us? Suddenly I talked with her. I said, Mom, I'm going. By the way, would you like to come? And there was, in 1 second, she said, yes. I asked my father, would you like to come? And he directly said, no. He touched his heart and he said, I'm a heart patient, but actually what he means, like, this will be too much for me emotionally. We went in the house and my mother was, crying, and I was filming and the story came and came and came and came, and room by room. And then we went to Lugazi, where I was born, and this is the factory your father worked. And then Mr. Madhvani gave permission himself, said, go, you can go. I know, of course I know your father. He worked under me.
But yet the circle was not complete.
Because there was one thing had to be mended. It was not finished yet. Because father didn't go back. And then we said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could go back with the whole family?
So in 2010, 11 members of Rohit's family visited Uganda.
My father finally saying yes. My siblings, nearly all except one, came. And a lot of them had their children with them as well. And we did the same trip, but with the group. Everything was, at the correct moment. It was like doing it now or doing it never. One of the grandchildren was interviewing his grandfather, interviewing us. So he was doing the thing which I did earlier. And so with my mother, I already had this oral history, project there. And with my father, it had to still be done. And then he did it. He asked, and that's also recorded. So then it was finished.
Now in his mid-50s, I asked Rohit what the key questions and lessons he'd like to share with us.
આપણે ડાયનેમિક ફ્લેક્સિબલ છે, આપણો પ્રાઉડ છે આપણા કલ્ચર, આપણું રિલિજન બારામાં, પણ આપણે એસિમિલેશન નથી થતા, આપણે ઇન્ટિગ્રેશન થાય છે, but we keep our core values with us and we give it to the next generation. And આપણે છે ને હંમેશા we try to reach the next level, coping with crisis and dealing it, and coming out as a winner, but also enhancing to a 2.0 level. We always, upgrading for ourselves, but not merely for ourselves or for materialistic reasons, but also for the next generation to have it better. what happened to us has strengthened us and not weakened us, I think.
If you would like to share your personal story for a future episode of Expulsion at 50, please get in touch. The email address is expulsion50@gmail.com or on Twitter @expulsion50. Till next time, take care and stay safe.